So last time you were telling us about your background, how you'd grown up in a home where your mother was a Jehovah's Witness, and how you loved to go to Woolworths after the services because you knew you get a toy, and then the impact of John Lennon's death, the Beatles, guitar, a band that nearly made it big, but then constantly going to university and being challenged by a philosophy class about Christ, and how in a conversation with your band manager you move from advocating your understanding of this to actually a belief in Jesus Christ. So I think we finished off by saying that you have this burden in your heart, as many new converts do, to go out and tell other people about Jesus Christ. But not every convert, understandably, ends up in the gospel ministry. So what was the transition from that burning desire to be going out and being a gospeler of Christ into actual ministry?
Prior to conversion, my whole desire was it was all self, it was all be a superstar, and I was also such a proponent of evolution and atheism. Like, I tried really hard to show Christians how foolish they were. That now that, I mean, this was the truth, and I knew I want to go out and tell everybody. It just was that burden. So I think getting back to I think you're asking about how did I get on this track to ministry. So I started attending church at a non-denominational Baptist church.
How did you find that church?
The Christians that were witnessing to me in university, that was they gave me the Bible, so I'm going to go. And I started attending there, and of course I had long hair at the time still, and I remember inviting the rest of the band to the service as well, thinking, oh, they just have to hear one sermon and then they'll be in as well, and that's it. And of course that didn't happen. And I kept attending, and I thought at that time I was going to be a door to a lot of people, because here I am, I was just I was in a rock band, and I was in to me, Christianity prior to actually being converted was being like Mr. Rogers or something, something that didn't...
nice.
Yeah, that's right. And so I thought, now I'll be able to show people that, you can be a normal, cool person in the world, and, not that I ever was actually cool, that was just a foolish...
But you had the long hair.
Yeah, that had long hair. So that's something.
We all tried in our own ways to be cool.
Yeah, that's right. Here's my latest try. Anyway, and so I was attending this church, and I had the long hair, and I was there for about a year, and I was thinking, I'll reach the people that are like me. And then I remember one day it struck me that, why do I think that would work when the very thing that I was attracted to was totally unlike me? I was intrigued by what I would call would be the most out of place square people in the world, right?
Yeah.
That goody two shoes kind of, and that's what I was drawn to. And I was struck by the fact that it's the power of God's Spirit and His Word that actually draws people, and it's not these kind of...
that was quite a breakthrough when you think about it.
Yeah, I didn't realize any of that.
Yeah.
It just was. It just seemed to make sense to me at that time.
Yeah.
But at that while I was there during that year at that first church, that non-denominational Bible church, I had changed my major from a business degree, to a philosophy degree, because I did know that I wanted to become a preacher. I didn't know minister of the gospel or any, and so I was attending Arizona State University, and I would ride the bus there and back, and it's a 1 hour drive one way, so it was 2 hours on the bus, and I was reading the Bible, and so for that whole first year I read through the Bible twice, cover to cover. I was first issued a King James version of the Bible, and could not make sense of it. I'd only read one book in my life before the Bible was given to me.
Right.
And it was Star Wars. I had seen the movie 10 times, and that was the only book I read. So reading, I mean, I actually technically didn't make it through high school. But anyway, I was reading the Bible, and I could not understand the King James Version. I stumbled into a Christian bookstore and happened to pick up the shelf New International Version. You know, a little bit better than Good News. Not as good as something higher, but still it was good.
But the NIV was the Bible of the 80s and 90s.
Correct. That's right. And I could read it, and so I was reading it, and I read through it, twice that semester. And by the end, this was right at the time of Operation Desert Shield under George Bush 1 with Saddam Hussein and so on. And of course, this church had brought out all the dispensational charts, and that Saddam Hussein is probably the Antichrist. He's going to make a covenant with Israel. There's going to be the battle, the whole Left Behind dispensational theology. And me as a young Christian looking at this, and I'd read through the Bible twice, and I was thinking, where is this coming from? Where's this gap with the church age? And I had thought, you know what? I'm a believer like Abraham, and it just I couldn't understand any of it, and I started asking questions about that. And they put me in my own Sunday school class.
Solitary.
Yeah, solitary, just me alone.
The church. It's called confinement.
Before the service.
Or containment.
Yeah. Everybody went into into their separate rooms, and then I went into this one room, and it was a woman, an older lady, who brought out the chart and started talking about these dispensations. The age of innocence, and then the age of law. And I'm saying, but how is that defined? This just looks like one story that's unfolding.
Yeah.
And that lasted maybe 2 weeks, and then they stopped that.
She wasn't going to win against you, huh? Dear
in
soul.
the sense that she wasn't, and I wasn't arguing against her. I was just trying to say, you're not making sense, and and then she realized that she wasn't able to make it work. I guess, I don't know, but so I went back in with the other normal people, and then this was the next big one. Is that we're all in the chart, and the elder, and I just say, he's probably in glory now. He's a dear brother and so on. But he's writing on the board all the different views of what other Christians believe. And he said, now there are Presbyterians, and they believe in hyper-Calvinism, and that of course has to do with predestination. Something to that effect is what he said. And so I raised my hand and I said, but doesn't it seem like we have to believe in predestination, because it says it here? And I turned to Ephesians and read those, and he said, and it says it there, so don't we have to kind of believe in predestination? And there was all this noise of all the desks and everything moving, and that was the first time I was ever aware that there were differences among Christians, like real differences, and that they're wrestling with questions. And they were uncomfortable with that. And I thought, this is something that needs to be explored.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happened was that we went outside after a church service one time. We're in the parking lot, and I'm with these Christian friends who had led me to the Lord. And to this day, I have the highest regard for them. I never talked to them. I haven't talked to them in, what is it now, 30 years or whatever. But, of course they have a special place in your life. They led you to the Lord, right?
Yes.
But we're out in front of the parking lot, and just across the way, there's I think it was like a Lutheran church or something. There was some other kind of Christian church, and I said, now, that's a Christian church too, right? And they said, yeah, and I think they said Lutheran or something. And I said, but they're Christian. And they said, yeah. And I said, why don't we know them? Because again, you come from no knowledge, and you're reading the Bible, and you're reading the New Testament, and you realize all these churches know one another.
Yes.
Greet, welcome. And so that was, I suppose, a proto Presbyterianism, that's just coming through. But
it shows the understanding that you gleaned by the grace of God from reading the Word of God.
yeah, that's true. And grace of God, that's exactly right. I think that's true. I went into that bookstore, and well, no, actually, I went back to the professor, and I asked him questions about predestination and about different denominations. And he was very standoffish. He wouldn't give me direct answers. But he did say, there's a book called The Creeds of the Churches that you should check out. So I went back into the bookstore and I was looking through, and there it was. I found it, Creeds of the Churches by, I think the man's name is Leith or something. Paperback book, looked like a Webster dictionary. And I started reading that, all these creeds, the historical creeds. And in that, of course, the Westminster Confession was there. And that actually did stand out to me as a very good presentation compared to all these other creeds. Well, I was wrestling with the doctrine of predestination. Emotionally, I remember sitting on a couch and thinking about, okay, if I'm predestined, what can I do? There, I raised my hand, but did I really raise my hand? Because the Lord knew I was going to do it. And I was like really wrestling with, if predestination, how. I went back to the professor again, and I asked him about that, about predestination. How do I avoid meaningless? How do I know? And he gave me an answer that I still use to this day when people struggle with that. He said, first of all, was Jesus predestined? And I said, obviously. And he said, well, if he could comfortably live with predestination, couldn't you?
That's a great answer.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, because and all of it kind of, flooded my mind about, his praying, that the Lord would take his cup from him, praying, all these things, and yet he could walk in this world comfortably knowing that everything is predestined. So I thought, okay, that was a real pastoral answer.
It's amazing that often the truism, the best answers are the simplest answers.
Yeah.
Because they're drawn just from the life of the Lord.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what was the stage then? What was the next stage then after that? Or maybe we'll pick up next time the next stage, and we'll see. So the next time we'll come back. Thank you for that today. The next time we'll come back and pick up how you move from that phase in your life at university and the Baptist Dispensational Church into Reformed Christianity and the ministry.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.